Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you.
Push it.
News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast.
Welcome to tonight's show, folks. I hope we don't have any audio issues because we've had enough setup issues for tonight's show. So if anyone's in the stream and if we sound weird, please let me know as soon as it happens. The weird audio problem we had with OBS not long ago happened to me in Streamlabs the other day while I was trying to do a local recording of something, and I'm really hoping that it's not going to happen tonight. So, welcome to tonight's show. I think I said that already. I'm your host, Nate, as usual, and I'm joined by two of our usual co-hosts. We're getting to be regulars at this point. Uncle Marc and Jason. Go ahead, fight over who's going to speak.
Hi.
Hey.
Oh.
That was the longest friggin' pre-show bullshittery we've had in I don't know how long.
It has been a while.
I still don't believe we're live right now.
It's all my fault because I switched.
Yes, it is.
I switched recording apps last minute. Well, technically, I switched. I did the first half of switching recording apps after last recording, which was 3 weeks ago at this point. The first half was to cancel Squadcast because I wanted to try Zencastr because I'd heard some good things and they'd made some changes recently. And I forgot to set up the account with Zencastr until about half an hour before we went live. So here we are live with Zencastr. And J-Scar, I see you're saying we sound good. I'm so relieved to hear that. So, tonight, Well, first of all, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for anyone who's hung with us in the short sabbatical that we had. Well, my wife had surgery. That's why we skipped last episode. Everything's fine, nothing crazy. She's recovering really well, and all of that is behind us now. So thank you guys for bearing with us there. But on with the show, right? So tonight, I had this crazy idea for a topic. Well, I had a number of crazy ideas for a topic. This one's been rolling around in my head since, not long ago. I came across this cool laptop hardware project. Do you guys remember there was a project? I think it came from Google. First they called it Project Aria, and then they switched it to Phone Blocks. Does that ring a bell for either of you?
No, but Google starts and cancels so much stuff.
They do. They do.
Yeah, that was their modular phone thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the idea was you got this frame, which was basically like the screen and a few other internals and like a main sort of backplane. And then there were these modular pieces that you could plug in to this frame, and then you basically had a phone that you could, I don't want to say build yourself, but you could customize. You could say, I don't really care so much about the camera, so I'm going to have a lower end camera, but I really want extra battery life, so I'm going to plug in these extra battery modules, or I really want a 5G radio, snap that in, right? But it never went anywhere. Well, I came across another project that's doing a very similar thing, except with laptops, right? And it really, it reminded me of something that's kind of bothered me about technology for a while. And you're going to have to bear with me for a moment while I tell you a short story. When I was a kid, of course...
Oh, Dad, you're so boring!
When I was a kid, of course, as you might guess, judging where my life went and, that I'm in technology and now, I was always fascinated with gadgets. And I remember when I was rather young, I can't remember when this was, but at like a dime store, if anyone remembers what a freaking dime store is, I bought this little flashlight. It was like a pocket flashlight. That one of these where you'd squeeze it, right? And when you squeezed it, the light would come on. And one of the first questions I had for my dad about this flashlight when I had it for a little while was, I don't see any battery cover. How do I change the battery when it dies? And my dad looked at it, and him, of course, being in technology as well, quickly identified that this flashlight isn't serviceable. You can't replace the battery. If the light bulb were to die, I think it was an LED, to be honest. Maybe it wasn't, but whatever it was. If the light bulb were to die, you couldn't replace it. It was meant to be throwaway, right? It was cheap. The thing was cheap enough that I could afford it as a little kid, with whatever change I had laying around. And it wasn't meant to be a long-lasting, serviceable item. And I thought that was a weird thing to do with anything, right? Because think about it. You get a flashlight, especially flashlights of the time. They were like these plastic cases that you'd pop C-cell batteries into, and you could replace the light bulb, and you could unscrew the cap and replace the lens if you had to, right? And this thing was the complete opposite end of that. You couldn't change anything about it. You couldn't even change the battery, right? And then I've seen more and more products coming out that fit that same model. They're not quite the same inexpensive, cheap thing as a flashlight, but cell phones, for example, laptops, right? They're not designed to be serviceable anymore. And because of that, at least American culture, I don't know about other countries, have gotten into this habit of if an electronic thing becomes unusable, or at least painful to use, like think about when your phone is 2 or 3 years old and all of a sudden it's slower, the battery doesn't hold as much of a charge as you want it to, or whatever. Instead of trying to fix that or pay someone to fix it, you just throw it away and buy a new one, right? And this is a term that I've heard called throwaway culture. And that's this laptop project that I found. I can't remember the name of it at this point, but the laptop was basically intended to combat throwaway culture, because a laptop today, you can't see my laptop that I'm pointing at, but a laptop today is not an easy thing to just crack open and service unless you're one of us, right? If you're an IT person, or if you're a person who likes to disassemble things, you can do it, right? But even for us, it's not easy. It's not just like snap, take a few screws out and you can get to the components.
I'm not a fan going into I had to open the ThinkPad once to when it was totally, I was testing some firmware stuff and I thought I had fried it and I had to actually disconnect the second battery. And I, going in there with these sausage fingers, I wasn't thrilled about it. It's one
Right.
of the ThinkPad T470, so it's a slim one.
Right.
Yeah, so you're basically you're a nervous wreck.
Yeah. So, and this kind of brought me to this subject, and it's not necessarily an IT subject, right? But I think it's related because people that work in IT, or at least people that might be listening to this show, maybe I'm generalizing, but they're generally people that understand the underlying, nature of things. And maybe you're the sort of people who like to break out the soldering iron and build things. Or at least maybe you know how to change the battery in your cell phone, right? Which in this world where cell phones don't have changeable batteries. But a lot of people don't, right? So my thought was that we would just sort of run through this, right? Like, so Jason and Mark, are you fixers? Or is there a line where you're like, this is not worth the effort versus, yes, I'll absolutely attempt to fix this device? One or the other. Go.
Yeah. No, for me, it depends on the device. If it's something that's relatively high quality, and would be expensive to replace, then yeah, I'll see what I can do to fix it. If it's just cheap garbage, probably just throw it away.
Yeah, so the flashlight example from earlier, you would not bother. I did eventually try to open it up, by the way.
Oh, I didn't say I wouldn't try to open it up just to see, but I've done this in the past where you open these things up that are meant to be thrown away, and yeah, you can fix them,
but you can't put it back together.
It'll never go back together the right way, and there's always something wrong with it.
So this is actually a very complicated topic. Because, because I'm at a place in my life now where I don't need to settle for the bare minimum acceptable quality level of something. And when I was younger, that's what I often had to do. So what I tend to do is I tend to spend more money, and I tend to buy higher quality things that tend to not be as disposable or don't break as easily. Because there have been many times when I first had kids and when I didn't make as much as I do today, I was, quite frankly, there were times when I was broke. And, depending on you guys, I'm sure have your own stories. And like when my wife and I first got married, like $20 was a lot of friggin' money. Right?
Yes, I remember.
Right? And some of our listeners might be like, oh, check your privilege, Uncle Mark, because that still is a lot of money. And I get that. I'm well off now, I would say, and I'm comfortable. So what I tend to do is, rather than worry about can I fix something, I will generally try to invest in things that sustain, right? Now, my handiness level comes and goes. The house we bought has been a challenge, and I'm not a very good homeowner. But let me just say, I've learned more about how to deal with a septic tank than I ever wanted to in my entire life.
Oh, I pity you.
But it's a little bit fascinating. It's actually a fascinating engineering problem, right? But cheap appliances, cheap cars, borderline pieces of tech. I'm over that now. It's like, if I can't afford the decent quality stuff, I don't even bother anymore, because it frustrates me more when you buy something that's barely functional and then it just fucking breaks a month after you own it.
Yeah, but
and I guess now it became not the family-friendly podcast.
Yeah, there's Mark.
There's Mark. Well, I've been drinking bourbon waiting for us to start.
Yeah.
But what is it? and this is where I'm supposed to be the old man yelling at a cloud. Ah, when my grandparents bought a washing machine, it lasted 30 years. And there's a certain truth to some of that, right? My grandfather had the same friggin' refrigerator in his house. I mean, he owned that refrigerator, I think, when I was probably 6 or 7, and he had the same thing when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked.
Yeah. So I was raised by 2 generations of basically my dad and my grandfather were both fixers. My grandfather lived through the Great Depression. Right.
And
So
that's a classic.
like that changes
classic
people,
thing,
right?
We're losing a lot of the people who lived through the Great Depression, but that when I was younger, especially, you heard that all the time
Right.
about people who lived through the Great Depression, and
Right.
it changed them.
And of course, my dad was raised by a man who lived through the Great Depression. So it was like, and of course, my dad's still around. My grandfather's no longer with us. But when he was around, like, he and my dad had a good relationship. So I saw a lot of my grandfather. And like, he had a workshop in his basement where he would do woodworking. And, you know, where he would... I'm in his. I live in his house now, right? So when he passed away, my dad inherited the place, and he rents it back to me and my family. So I had the job of basically recently I went through and cleaned out a bunch of his old stuff that he had in the basement in his workshops, because I have other uses for those spaces, similar uses, but whatever. The number of motors from washing machines that I found in the basement was like, why? Why did he keep these things? Well, it's because he lived through the Great Depression, and he always thought, I might have a use for this later, right? So I feel like in today's culture, especially, there's a huge push for like minimalism. People don't want a bunch of clutter. They don't want a bunch of stuff. You'll buy an iPhone, and a year or two later, like, this is the cliche, right? A year or two later, people will be lining up with their iPhone 9s to go buy the iPhone 10. Right, just because it's new, not because they really need a new phone, right? Well, what happens to those iPhone 9s or whatever's, right? Sometimes they go on eBay or wherever. Sometimes they get pitched, right? And to me, that feels like a ton of wasted money. And it feels like in this world where we're all supposed to be a little more worried about the environment, it feels like it's terrible for the environment, don't you think? Right? So there's several facets to this. If a piece of electronics that I own fails, I don't pitch it. I try to find a way to fix it or use it in its broken state, right? So if it's like, oh, the cell radio is bad on this cell phone, maybe I'll use it as a media player. I'll give it to my kids to play games on or something, right? I don't know. Is that just me, I guess, is what I'm getting at? Are there other people out there who are really like reusing their electronics, not pitching stuff that are not functional? What kind of luck are you having doing that? Like, I have an iPad mini here that was my wife's that unfortunately got the screen got cracked. And I replaced the screen. I was terrified the whole time I was doing it because I'd never done a screen on anything so expensive as an iPad. But I got it done, right? And it worked, and she got another year or two's use out of it before we upgraded the thing. Like,
I one of the kids broke their phone a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Broke their phone, and cracked screen, the whole 9 yards, and I was like, oh, okay. And it was dirt cheap to get new glass for it.
Oh yeah, that was the cheap part.
yeah. Turns out it's dirt cheap because the glass is adhesively attached to the electronics, which is fine.
And it's as thin as a sheet of paper.
Yeah. So all you do is you heat it up, and you just slide that glass right off.
Sure.
Right. So they have these really cool machines that do this.
I had a hairdryer.
They're stupid, godly expensive. Hairdryer's not hot enough. They're stupid, godly expensive.
Oh no, wait! I used a heat gun. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm online, and I'm like, how do I do this? Because I have the parts now, and I don't want to not do this. So let's just go figure this out. Oh, just flip an iron over, and heat that puppy up, and just drop it on there for a couple seconds. And then slides right off. I'm like, okay, cool. So we did that. I cooked the LCD. It worked. It continued to work. just a big black spot in the middle of the screen. So all the colors and everything are all dark.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked. So we bought a new phone, threw the old one away. Because if I wanted to replace the it's not called an LCD. There's another term that they have for it.
OLED?
If I wanted to replace that,
We can
no,
call
this
it
was
display.
before LEDs, but it's
Display,
the display.
there.
If I wanted to replace the display, it was like, I don't know, $5 from just buy a new phone.
Oh no!
It's the
So
most expensive single component.
yes.
Yes.
So when I did it
Yeah.
on the iPad Mini, it was something like $80 to replace the display, and it was something like $300 or $400 to buy a new iPad Mini. Right? I guess to buy an iPad Mini of the same model might have been more cost effective to just buy it. But that actually brings up a really good point. So electronics, the pricing for electronics has fallen in line to sort of enable this culture, right? And I don't know.
Well-
Do we have any thoughts on that? Like, I love inexpensive electronics, but I don't love the idea that electronics are just being treated as disposable. You know what I mean? It's the old, I actually heard this fits in perfect. It's not a news item, but it is. I did hear it on the news. HP got noticed for pushing out a software update to their printers that would make them, after some amount of time, not even immediately, but after some amount of time, reject off-brand print cartridges.
Yep.
Right? So it was like after 6 months or something, all of a sudden the print cartridge, even though it was perfectly functional still, would start like printing blotchy or something. I forget what it was. But that's the exact thing, right? So printers, when I got into computers, printers were an expensive investment. Even an inkjet or a dot matrix was $100, $150, $200, right? The first inkjet I purchased, I think, was like $400, if I remember correctly, $300, something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of money, right? Now it's like you can go to Walmart and buy a 3-in-1 printer, or like an office printer, right, that has a scanner and a fax or whatever for like 27 cents. But then they charge you $180 for ink. This is, of course, an exaggeration, but
I have an HP. I have a HP Color LaserJet that I've had for years now. I think when we got them, my father had bought them years and years ago. I think when he got them, the printer cost something in the range of like $200, something like that.
Yeah, for a laser printer is crazy.
Color
laser printer, yeah.
Okay. And of course it comes with cartridges that you can print like 3 pages and then they're empty because they're only test cartridges.
Yeah.
To buy a full set of color cartridges, color toner,
I can only imagine.
The Color LaserJet printer is in excess of $400.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's how they actually are making their money. It's
Yeah.
like you give away the razors and you sell the blades.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, when I turned 18, somehow Gillette knew that I turned 18. I think that they're on a list that when you turn 18, you're supposed to register with the government that you're 18, selective service or whatever they call it. I swear that when I did that, Gillette got an email. Or a letter, I guess, at that time. Because, 2 weeks later, I got a razor in the mail from Gillette, a free razor. They're like, hey, a guy just turned 18. He's going to want to shave. Let's get in there quick. Anyway.
So, I think we're talking about a couple of different things.
Oh,
right?
yeah. We've gone all over the place already, but it's at least kind of related.
So there's always the rat race, right? And when I was younger, the big dick swinging item was your car,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on your house.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the big dick swinging items nowadays is your phone.
Yeah.
Right. You look at the soccer moms or the teenagers, the students, whatever. There should be video.
There's totally video.
And the phone is one of the things now that people are into. So I think when that new iPhone comes out, part of it is people who legitimately want to upgrade because maybe they have an obsolete model. But I think part of that is people who just are like, hey, Nate's gonna have the new iPhone and xenophage is gonna have the new iPhone, and I can't be left behind. I need it before those suckers so I can wave it in their face.
Right.
So I think especially, and I realize it sounds like grumpy old man yelling at cloud. Those stupid kids on their phones, but I think that's sometimes part of it with the phone culture, especially, is people just want the latest and greatest, even if it's not a significant update. The only reason I have an iPhone 10XR is because my 6S was in the waterproof box on a canoe trip. And it turns out the waterproof box doesn't work real well when you don't have the gasket.
Then
If without the gasket, it's just a box.
It's just a box.
And when the canoe flipped, it was filled with water. And the iPhone 6XS
then it was a bucket.
It was
Okay,
right.
So I think
it was
you
a bucket.
did multiple things wrong there, right? So,
Yeah.
so you've got the box without the gasket, but you were in a canoe. Canoes are not supposed to flip. Those are kayaks you're thinking of.
Yeah, you got that backwards.
Well, this was up in Maine, and these were pretty wicked rapids, and we
Then
were
you should
trying
not
to
have had a
rescue
canoe
some.
on them.
Yeah, right. you should have had a raft.
Should have been a raft or a kayak.
They were,
Yeah, I'm still sporting the XS because the 11 didn't hold any interest for me, and the 12 still. I mean, the camera's better, but then I was thinking about how many pictures I take, and that's not a good reason to get a phone.
Yeah.
But that's what they sell you on. You need the phone for the camera.
What killed me the most with the 12,
Because you can't just go buy a camera for half the price of an iPhone.
so the 11 didn't seem like a significant upgrade for anything that I had any interest in. And the 12, I was interested in it briefly until I saw the whole 5G thing and the fact that apparently providers are charging additional rates just to give you 5G.
Oh God.
And I was having trouble trying to figure, because it's so vague on how they word things. It took me a while to figure out that no, you don't actually have to buy a 5G plan. You just won't be able to use 5G, which I don't think there's 5G around here anyway. So that didn't matter, but it was so vaguely written that, the moment you got the phone, they're like, you got to upgrade to a 5G plan for like an enormous amount of money. And I was like, I don't know. Thank you. I don't need that.
I don't want to delve into complaining about cell providers, but man, this is the thing so they're all touting 5G. Like, oh, 5G is the future. You can get cell internet access to your house that's faster than your local ISP, which I think is great, right? I think that's awesome because it means that all of a sudden my cable company, which has a monopoly in my area, you know who I'm talking about, Jason, has competition. The problem is if Verizon and AT&T and whoever are going to keep the data caps and they're going to keep the like gimme money to get that service, it's not competition. You know what I mean? It's not actually going to compete with the cable modem because the cable modem has a much higher cap, if a cap at all, depending on who your provider is, right? So anyway.
Right. And then there's this other little ugly thing that I like to throw in people's faces every so often. You're sitting there at Starbucks with your brand new iPhone and your MacBook, feeling all self-righteous. Maybe if you didn't upgrade so often, we wouldn't have to enslave so many people over in Asia to build the electronics. Jay Scar has kind of pointed that aspect out in the chat.
Right. So I guess to sort of bring this back to how I started the conversation with that laptop that's more easily upgradable and serviceable. I'm kind of curious, right? So say, I don't think that laptop is on the market, at least not in the US yet. If it were, and if you had a choice between, I don't know, this was a PC compatible machine, not a Mac, right? So if you had a choice between a Dell laptop that's $500 and certain stats, right? So the $500 laptop is probably going to be like a good web browsing machine, good to hand to your mom and let her use to go shop Amazon and check Facebook and whatever. And then say this machine, which had Snap components, was $600, right? A little more expensive. Would you pay the money to have a machine that not only is serviceable, but is designed in a way that's meant to be serviceable, right? It's not just like, oh yeah, I can disassemble a Dell and replace the memory or the hard drive or whatever if I need to, because I've done it, right? But this thing is designed with that in mind. It's designed to be modular and serviceable. Like, what's that worth to people, I guess, is my question. And this is a question for listeners, too. Obviously, you can't answer on the live stream, but let us know, right? But what do you guys think?
I think it depends. So for people who are... Here's the problem. So it's more expensive to get that because it's serviceable. And there's definitely a subset of people who will jump on that.
Yeah.
The average person who's looking at a $500 laptop because it's cheap can't afford a $600 serviceable laptop, and is not going to jump that. That extra $100 is something they need to keep in their pocket. People who can drop that and not blink aren't going to drop $600 on a modular laptop unless it is of a better quality and is going to last longer for them, right? So I have
or has a particular piece of fruit on it.
Yeah. So well, and this is the wonderful argument that I'm about to start. I happen to like MacBooks. I like my MacBook Pro. I have purchased 2 of them in my life so far because they last forever. I had a MacBook that lasted in excess of 10 years and got it replaced finally because it, after 10 years, it was finally slow enough that I needed to do something. They last an enormous amount of time. So for me, the cost that I'm putting into getting the machine that I want is worth it because it lasts a while. Whereas on the Windows side, when I was doing Windows laptops, I was suffering with not being able to keep up, and not, my machine would get so incredibly slow after a year or two that I just couldn't use it anymore. But I had no choice because I couldn't afford to move, keep buying new laptops. I was younger and didn't have as much money, but so I think it depends on what the quality is. I would love a modular system that I would be able to upgrade relatively easily. But some of these components are not. It's not something you can just change. It's not a desktop. So I mean, laptops are not really. Everything's built on a single board these days. On pretty much every laptop out there. So making it modular actually causes problems.
I don't know that it causes problems. How do you think it causes problems?
Well, it's going to be bulkier. You've got all of the different connectivity that you've got to deal with in there. These components are not simply slap in stuff, right? So like a Wi-Fi card is one thing, but if you want to change the CPU, or even the GPU, like that's not trivial in a laptop. At least not anything that I've ever seen. It's not like a desktop. You can't just pull that PCI card out and put a new one in.
So I mean, but if the hardware is designed in a way that it's meant to be able to do that, right? Then it is modular. It is possible to remove the thing, right? But the problem, the thing you pointed out was how slim is it, right?
Yeah, I don't need a 2 micron thin slim laptop. I mean, it's got to be. I don't care. I can pick up a laptop and I can move around with it, and as long as it's not like, I don't know, 20 pounds, like it's not a big deal. I have worked with people who complain incessantly that a 15-inch MacBook is too heavy and they have to have the 13-inch.
Yeah.
Because how can they possibly walk around with a 15-inch? But whatever.
What do you know of my pain?
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I am not the person to argue that with, by the way, because I will tell you to go to hell and, deal.
Nice.
Yeah, I also had people who demanded, and it was the finance industry, so big surprise.
No.
Absolutely violently demanded that they get a second laptop that they can leave at home, because having to lug their laptop from the office to their home was like a crime against humanity.
Well, yeah.
Again, I am not the person to argue. I was, it was a 3-hour drive for me. So
Missing the
tears.
point of what a
Anyway,
laptop is at that
yeah,
point.
I know. The problem with the scenario of a modular laptop is, I think, at least in my opinion. So if you look at a desktop, you've got motherboard, you've got a couple different chips you can throw in there for CPUs, and then you've got a PCI expansion slot or whatever they're using these days. And you can just drop whatever you want in there. Oh, like that NVIDIA card? Oh, that's cool. Oh, that one's garbage. Let's throw the AMD in. All right, cool. We'll switch to that. Oh, we've got a Sound Blaster card. And like, you've got all these different manufacturers that make things that can throw in there.
Do they still make cards? Sound Blaster? Haven't heard that name in years.
They make.
I haven't heard since.
I know they make USB sound card device thing. My son that got one.
Oh, that's cool.
Crazy Sound Blaster thing.
All right.
Anyway, with the laptop moving to a modular setup like that, who's making all of that? Like, there's no industry for this at the moment. So, I think unless there's some sort of big movement to it, parts are going to be astronomically priced.
I think that's kind of my question, though, right? Like, is this a thing that people want? Is kind of what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know the three of us probably can't answer that because we're a different market than the average laptop buyer.
Oh, yeah.
Personally, I think it's a really cool idea, and I'd love to see
Yes.
it. I'd love to see it more commonplace. And if mainstream vendors picked up on this, because think about the PCs we got started with. Well, maybe not you, Uncle Marc, but they were modular. Like, I don't know if the Apple II or whatever that thing you have behind you was modular. Were they modular?
The Apple II has 7 expansion slots.
Okay, so they were modular.
You could change the little beads on the abacus.
I need to adjust my glasses. Okay.
But my point is, when I got into PCs in the mid-90s...
4 different colors, Jason. 4 different colors.
They were...
On the abacus.
Most of it...
5 if you were a good boy.
Most of the items in a PC were upgradable, interchangeable. You just had to know what you were buying to make sure it was compatible with what you were building.
But Nate, the Apple legit, well, the original Apples were a kit you had to put together, right?
Oh, right, that's right.
And you had to put memory chips in it. You didn't get memory on a
right.
stick.
So that's what I mean, though, right? So that's where we came from.
On a stick, like there was sort of slacker welfare queen. You actually had to insert the actual chips.
There was a day,
the individual slots.
There was a day when computing was a hobbyist thing. And you had to own a soldering iron to make your machine work, right? And then there was
You're not wrong.
Then there was a point where it was a little more modular, where you had to know something about what was going in it, but learning that was not quite as difficult as people thought it was, right? Like, you could, in the 90s, you could get into building computers without being some sort of a, programming whiz, which is what everybody seemed to think at the time. And then the industry shifted to, we need to be able to sell things to teenagers and grandma and everybody in between. So we need to make them as dirt simple and stupid as possible. So we end up with these disposable machines.
But I'm going to counterpoint a couple of things because I've gone in and out of 3-bit graphics card. I've gone in and out of building my own PC several times. The industry has made amazing strides in standardizing and making it far less of a pain in the ass to build a PC now. Like, they've actually settled on reasonable standards. Like, there was a point where if you got the wrong friggin' power supply for the wrong friggin' case, it just wasn't going to fit in.
Yep. Or it wouldn't plug into the motherboard,
right.
Now, happily, it wouldn't fit so that you couldn't plug it in and fry the components you just purchased.
Right. Nowadays, things that they've standardized on a couple of things, and there's a very, very rich and dynamic infrastructure and community around custom PC builds. And if you're willing to put the learning in there, you can do some amazing things. Now, I can't speak for building your own laptop. I mean, I use a laptop because that's what Red Hat gives me.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't use it like a laptop. I mean, I undocked it this week because we had the guy demoing my bathroom. So I actually walked it upstairs. But
I
99% of the time, it's docked because
I
I
hope
want my second monitor.
I hope you mean demoing like demolition and not demoing like
Demolitioning the worst room in
demonstrating.
the house. Yeah, no, not showing me how to take a dump. No, we're redoing the bathroom and the laundry room behind me.
All right. So anyway, I think we've made the point.
Mark's going through potty training again. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm curious what listeners think. So please hit us up on this topic. Would you buy a modular laptop? Maybe if it was at the cost of size and pretty form factor. Maybe even at the cost of real money cost. Though I don't know that that's the case.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that your modular laptop is a little bit of a fantasy because they'd never be able to produce it at the volume necessary to be successful.
I'm going to say I think you're right, and that makes me sad. But I am still curious.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be sad.
I'm still curious what listeners think.
Nate's going to start a Kickstarter for this whole project.
Yeah, well, no, it already exists. I have to find the link. I should have looked it up before the show tonight. I shared it with JScar, so throw it in chat, JScar, if you still have it. I can't even remember the name of it at this point. But it was really cool. I thought it was a really interesting thing, but I also thought that phone blocks was an interesting thing, and of course we see where that went.
Is this framework? Is that what you're talking about?
Was it? That sounds right.
I just found an article from actually a couple weeks ago on Engadget. Startup designs a modular repairable laptop.
That might be it.
They're called Framework.
That might be it. Well, if that's it, I'll try to find it. Oh, JScar says yes. So we'll get the link and we'll include it in the show notes so that folks can look it up if they're interested. If I remember correctly, it was not available in the US. Maybe that's changed, but I think it'd be cool. So, at any rate,
but I will point out that I mean, they say repairable, right? So I mean, you have to put the limits on what repairable means. Repairable is U.S. military repairable, not I have a soldering iron repairable, right? So
right.
U.S. military repairs something. So like the people that are trained to do this, they have these cool little devices that figure out where the problem is, and then they disconnect the big chunk of thing that's broken and replace the big chunk of thing. Yeah, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think if we could get to a state where that is commonplace, I think that's what we need to make electronics quote unquote repairable. Because it needs to be simpler. It needs to be, I call up tech support, they run a thing, and it says, oh, the widget is broken. Just pop out the widget card, and we'll send you a new widget card, and you pop it in, and you're back up and running. Today, you contact support, and the widget is broken. They say, we'll send you a new laptop. Or, I'm sorry, you have to buy a new laptop because your widget is broken. Like, that's my point. Like, that's where I think it'd be really cool if the industry could get there. I don't think it will, but I'm curious what people think is what I'm getting at. All right, so we've beaten this up a bit. I think we've gotten our point across, right? And I think...
So, is throwaway culture bad? I'm not clear.
I feel like it's bad, but that's me, right? I think it depends on the person. I do think that in a world where we're trying not to put electronic waste into, landfills, yes, throwaway culture is bad. Because a lot of people, when they say throwaway culture, they literally mean I've thrown it in a trash can and it went out in the garbage this week, which is bad.
So I'm gonna be cranky for a second, and I'm gonna say if you're some self-righteous, supposedly extreme environmentalist, but you're in line at the Apple Store every year for the latest iPhone, you're a fucking hypocrite.
Well, I'm not saying that
And
those.
I hate you.
I'm not saying that the people that are environmental extremists are the ones that are perpetuating the culture, although they could be. I don't know. I know you see a lot of memes that imply that, but I don't know how
No,
true
what
they
I'm
are.
saying is that if you truly consider yourself an environmentalist, then I think that's something that
Well, no, so
you need to re-examine your relationship to
I'm
how you handle
thinking
electronics.
about it from a middle point where I do not really want to see the Earth destroyed, but I don't think
No.
everyone should be an environmentalist wacko to make sure that happens. I think that it should be that the common people are incentivized to not throw their lithium-ion batteries in the garbage. Right?
That's crazy reasonable speak, and I think it's crazy, and you should be quiet now.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be crazy.
So I'll say two things. One, I'll say that any throwaway. I don't know that there's a way to defend throwaway culture. Period.
I'm going to throw my lithium-ion batteries in my fire pit.
That's so much better for the world.
Only if you stream it live to YouTube.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Cancel Uncle Marc.
Throwaway culture means that like if you're throwing it away, garbage, throwing it away, it's going to a pit somewhere and it's just going to rot. And if it is not, fruits and vegetables that can't be used elsewhere, then you're damaging things more than anything.
Right.
The other thing I'll say is that if for those people that are environmentalists, whatever, Apple does actually do a fairly decent job of recycling if you bring your devices back to them. They do have machines that tear them down and try to recycle everything that they can.
It's actually super easy around here. I got a bunch of stuff that I need to bring over to Best Buy because they have a box. You can just drop old computer stuff in.
Yeah, right. So that needs to. So what I'm saying,
I'd like to think the recycling fairy breaks it down and something good happens.
So
I'd like to think it's better than me throwing it in a big black bag and putting it on my curb.
What I'd like to see is
feel better about it.
So there was a time when we did not have a recycle bin.
Same place, doesn't it?
We didn't have a recycle bin that we put our recyclables in, and the garbage people came and took. I think it'd be great if normal waste management streams had a way to dispose of electronics instead of having to sit around and wait for electronics disposal days when there's like 20 different items they won't take. Right?
Jason's like, there you go. It all goes into the same fucking pile.
So it probably does.
And let me explain how true that is. Nate lives near me, and I believe is under the same waste management that we have. So we can separate recyclables into various different bins. So there is a bin for glass and metal. There is a you're supposed to separate out your cardboard and then of course your garbage. And I was pretty, trying to be a nice, do the right thing. And I was doing that for a while until I talked to somebody who actually was there at the waste disposal place and saw what exactly happens with this. And I think it might actually be worse than throwing it all together. So what they do here anyway, is your garbage goes into a pit. They dig a hole, they layer it with your garbage. Then they take your glass and your metal and they put it through a shredder. And then they pour that on top of the layer of garbage. And then they put another layer of garbage. And then they shred the metal and the plastic and put that on top of it. I'm sorry, what the hell does that do besides actually endanger animals?
No, I'm sure there's a perfectly legitimate reason for doing it that way.
The argument is that they're using it for drainage purposes, but it's actually detrimental to wildlife.
I would say that it's whether it's shredded up or not, it's still ending up in the landfill. Right,
but if it's not shredded, it's not going to be as detrimental to wildlife, which is sort of my point.
Well, no. What I'm saying is shredded up or not shredded up, it's still in the landfill.
Yes.
And the point of recycling was that these are things that don't biodegrade and we can reuse, so we should recycle them.
Yes.
It's adorable how you think that way.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So anyway, We're going way off the reservation at this point. Although I guess it is related.
Are on their way.
What's that?
The black helicopters are on their way.
Yeah, they will come and separate your garbage for you. Ah!
I always wanted my own black helicopter. This is awesome.
Awesome. All right, folks, we're going to go to a break quick, and we will be back. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation. Let us know what you think about, hopefully not about...
Let us know. Do you separate your garbage? Let us know. Oh, there we go.
Wait, the topic is in the trash. And that is exactly the cue that we need to go to a break. So we'll be back in a few, folks. See you then.
Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you.
We have to give the purple
That
buttons
sounded
some
like
love.
rock and or roll.
Rock and or roll, indeed.
Little Simpsons call out.
Yep.
That wasn't a hymn. That was rock and or roll.
From the Catholic on the show.
He's not Catholic. He's a generic, old school.
No, but it's
generic.
Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Oh, I'm the Catholic.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna call out your faith there, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Like,
all right. So let's get on with the housekeeping stuff, and then we can get to the fun stuff, the chat. Right? Let me bring this.
the Pope says I can drink. It's one of the benefits.
Oh,
anyway.
Good. Hang on here. Total click and drag failure. Here we go. All right, so announcements. Patreon update. I didn't get our total for this week. I'm sorry, folks, but it's around where it was last time. I think we lost a patron, but we gained, I think, 2.
Lost?
Yeah, we lost 1, gained 2. But it was it was someone who had given us a decent amount of money over time. So I'm not going to be upset that they left, because they've, I feel like they've given enough, right? Not saying any of the rest of you should leave. So I just want to give a quick shout out to the folks that are patrons this month. We've got Andrew, who's new, Tatro, who's also new, I think, rootisgod, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn, Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, gimpyb, Marc with a K, DeMentor from PowerShellOnLinux, John the Nice Guy, Marc with a C, Julius, Andi, Jay, Charles, and our old friend. Do you remember the number, Marc?
It's got a 2 in it.
It's got a couple 2s, 3 2s, in fact. 225.
I just call him 2 for short.
22532. Our longest patron.
Peace out to you, 2.
Still our longest patron.
All the heart. All the heart to 2.
As always, folks, if you want to get any Iron Sysadmin merchandise, you should do so at Teespring. There's a link in the show notes, teespring.com/stores/Iron Sysadmin. And if you are a patron, or if you're thinking of becoming a patron, you should check out Patreon, because I just revamped our Patreon tiers. We have a $1 tier for all you folks. Yes, it's the Patreon. It's the Patreon tiers. Wrong kind of tiers, Marc.
Damn.
We've got a $1 tier for anyone who just wants to say, like, hey, we like what you're doing. There were a number of folks already giving $1, so I wanted to give you a tier that was just for, that $1 level. It doesn't get you much, but at least gets you recognition. You get a role in Discord that shows. Sorry, did I say that wrong, Marc?
Some shots are just too easy.
Push the button.
You get a role in. Hang on. It's on the wrong Discord. You get a role. You get a role in Discord that shows your patronage, and you get a call out on the show. We've got a $5 tier and a $10 tier and a $15 tier for any level of patronage you want to give us. I think it's at the $10 level or the $10 level tier. You also get behind the scenes access to this cool little thing that I've worked out on Discord, which I'm gonna actually hang on a sec here. We're gonna do a fun thing. If I can find it in OBS, there's a thing here. There's a thing here.
You're wearing pants this time, right?
There's a thing. Yes, I'm wearing pants this time. So here we're gonna transition now. So on the live stream, you should see a new little window, a new little camera window. We tried this out on our last show. You can see kind of a behind the scenes look of what we're doing here, or what I'm doing here on the show. So you can see my laptop over here with Marc and Jason on it, and you can see my main screen here with OBS open. And this is just like an extra thing. It also I'm broadcasting this stuff to a special channel on Discord that you can join once you're at a $10 or higher tier on Patreon. So yes, and it's just Nate's hands. And it was my beer, but you can also see my Lego A-Wing here. I think that's an A-Wing.
The most boring of all the Star Wars.
Yeah, well, here, Marc.
I'm sorry to say.
It is, but it's tiny, right? And it's cool, and it fits on your desk.
I mean, in Squadrons, it's the best for dogfighting. It's absolutely baller.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's not like the X-Wing fighters. X-Wing.
There's...
And, of course, TIE fighters. Ah!
There's also a Baby Yoda,
it's an
though.
yeah.
I mean,
This is why the Patreons give us the big bucks, is all to hear
to
the sound effects that Marc comes up with.
So my
Except
goal,
the one guy who gave us a bad review,
My-
he can pound sand.
but he's not a patron. So my
can
goal
pound
here
sand.
is that this can be used for sort of behind the scenes access, right? So you guys want some behind the scenes access? This is the way to get it. You can. What I'm going to do is during the pre-show. We'll have a pre-show, I should say, which is basically after we get things set up and we're just waiting to go live. Which we're always just sitting around waiting for 7 o'clock. We're never frantically trying to figure out the technology.
I'm generally sitting around waiting.
But you'll be able to get in on that and maybe even chat with us. Maybe there'll even be a point where we do that live on the show, where you can I can literally just move this slider up on my mixer, and you'll be able to talk to us through this cell phone that I have up here, looking down on my desk. Anyway, my point is that this is the $10 tier, and at the $15 tier, after 2 months, we'll send you a T-shirt, or I'll send you a T-shirt. Jason's not going to send you a T-shirt. He doesn't have a stock of T-shirts. Neither do I, for that matter. But I'll send you a T-shirt. So
I have a stock of T-shirts that's taller than me.
just not Iron Sysadmin. I guess I didn't specify. I mean an Iron Sysadmin T-shirt.
I really don't think they want my old T-shirts.
They're mine.
Maybe Jason's wife would like it if we started giving away Jason's old T-shirts. Maybe
I think
we'll make.
I like your idea about getting the kids running in, and in fact, that could, if you're certain of a Patreon, you should have a summon children button.
Yeah, right.
That
It just pings my kids on their Facebook messengers, and they just show up in the room like, "Hey, we were called."
Your kids have Facebook?
Yeah, don't even get me started. So anyway,
let me wind this one up.
There's also a $20 tier, but I don't expect average listeners to go. I mean, if you want to, go ahead. I'm not going to complain. But that's if you want to be an advertiser for the show. If you want to give $20 a month, we'll give you a special shout out on the show for within reason, right? If you're going to try to advertise for porn or something, unless it's really good, we're not going to put it out on the show. I'm sorry. There's a caveat there. So we're going to review it, and if we don't like it, I'm sorry, we're not going to advertise for it.
So
but
we are definitely going to have to review all of it in depth prior to.
But if it's relevant to the show, at that tier, you'll get every show you'll get a call out for what it is that you're selling, right? And after a certain amount, I forget how much that amount was. I'm drawing a blank. We'll actually bring you on the show to talk about your product, right? So if you want to do that, then check out Patreon.
We will shill for free stuff.
So if it's really good porn, then you'll do it. I mean, I don't want to say no. I don't usually close the door on stuff like that. No, we won't. We won't do that. This is totally a family-friendly show, except only if we mute Uncle Marc.
Whatever.
All right. So at any rate, that's I'm done shilling for Patreon. However, if you are a patron and you want to fit into one of those tiers, or if you think you're already paying enough to fit one of those tiers, I think you have to go to Patreon and pick the tier, right? So if you're already a $10 a month patron, you're going to want to go, and I think you have to re-pick the tier, right, to match up with the rewards that you get. If you're not a $10 patron and you want that behind the scenes access, you should totally go become one.
You know, if the framework folks send us each one of those modular laptop tests, we will happily have them on the show.
Yeah.
Twice.
Maybe 3 times.
A lady. Kenny Rogers. Once, twice, 3 times a lady. Was that Kenny Rogers or was that Lionel Richie?
I really don't remember.
Disgusted with me.
But folks, he's not. Uncle Marc's talents are not just limited to Disney. That's what you should take away from this.
Yeah.
And we heard the sound effects before, so you know.
It's a good thing I'm pretty good with Linux. Let me just put it that way.
Don't give up your day job.
I'm not.
All right. So what have you guys been up to lately? We haven't met in 3 weeks. We haven't.
Right.
Marc, I talk to you frequently enough, but
yeah, lucky me. I mean, sure.
Lucky you.
So it turns out that I kind of like being a gaming streamer. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't have a large audience at all, and I have no interest in making money, but I've done a couple of flight simulator streams. The most recent one being taking the Icon seaplane to Pearl Harbor and trying to land near the battleship Arizona. I forgot that the Icon is not, in fact, a helicopter, and my landing did not go well. I ran out of river.
Oh, so it was more of a reenactment than a visit?
Yeah, it kind of turned out that way. But I'm super excited because fellow scout leader and pilot, my friend Rod, is coming tomorrow night to check out the flight simulator in VR. He actually flies a jet for a living.
He's a real pilot.
He's a real pilot.
Oh,
so I'm very
cool.
curious about his feedback on.
I gotta say, after watching some of your live streams of you doing flight sim, especially with those live flight towers,
the air traffic control,
I feel like the only real difference between being a VR pilot and a real pilot is the loss of life that could happen if you screw up.
There's a little bit of stress, right?
Yeah, right.
And the evidence is on my streams. I have sometimes bitten off far more than I could chew, and things can go really bad really quickly. So all the respect to
Jason,
real pilots.
if you don't know what we're talking about, there's literally live gamers that are, I guess they're gamers.
It's
that game
they're
out
not real air traffic controllers.
They game out
to be air traffic controllers.
Right, they game out being air traffic controllers. Like, could you imagine playing a game where you're an air traffic controller?
That sounds really boring to me. I did catch your stream when you were flying the ultralight over DC though.
Yeah, that was when I do stuff like that, I don't use VATSIM because I don't want to annoy the people who are trying to play for real. And when you're playing for real, you try not to violate FAA guidelines, like buzz the white.
Yeah, like flying over DC. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, if it's a game, right, you want to be able to do stuff like that. That's the whole point. You don't necessarily want your games to be real.
Look, I think it would be okay for you to fly over DC with the VATSIM going, provided they react properly and you are immediately shot down by F-16s.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I don't know if the air traffic controllers can actually summon that. But
that
would be cool.
they can report you to like an artificial, like a person who's playing as the National Guard. Is that it? Like there's someone else that's pretending to be a National Guard responder.
That's where Secret Service sim pops in. We got another one.
F-16. So it's funny that when you make your VATSIM account and you read the rules that you agree to, there's actually very specific things you're not allowed to do.
Okay.
You're not allowed to simulate being hijacked.
Oh.
And you're not allowed to squawk 7500 on your transponder, which is the code for I'm being hijacked. They will boot you from VATSIM for doing that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because it gets people upset.
Yeah,
right?
well, I can understand that. So
now,
like, you can't. I mean, this seems unfair. You can't, like, as a flight sim player, have your daughter run in behind you and like knock you out of your chair and hijack your flight sim?
They would frown upon that. Now, there are.
What if that's the reality you want to play?
There's lines that they don't want to cross.
Right. No, I get it.
Now, if you've got your simulator set up to like a lot of the simulators, you can either trigger a disaster on purpose or have random disasters happen, like engine failure, things like that. If you do that, that's fine, and then air traffic control you can squawk an emergency or whatever. But yeah, no, it's fun. Avionics, man, the Venn diagram between nerds and flight and flying, super intersection there.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. But the other thing I've been doing is not so serious. This awesome Viking game called Valheim, which is this early access game on Steam that is written. It's built by a 5-person studio in Sweden, and it has exploded. They hit 5 million players the other day. 5 million
wow!
customers.
The number of people. So you told me about Valheim before I'd ever actually heard of it.
Yeah.
But the number of people I've heard about it from since then is kind of surprising. I mean, there's a lot of people have been just like, oh, have you seen Valheim? Yeah, this guy I work with told me about it.
It is hella cool because it plays very well solo, but it is also a perfect small group co-op experience. Co-op being the key. You can turn on PvP damage, but it is not a PvP game.
Right.
So for people who like to build and who like to adventure together, it's really good. And the sweet spot is probably 3 to 5 people. The server will support 10, but it's probably 3 to 5 people. And the ideal situation is you're playing with people you know, not Joe Rando from the internet.
Right. I'm gonna have to pick this game, and it's not that expensive. I looked it up. It's like $20. Yeah.
And it's amazing. I'm running it on a RHEL 8 VM on my son's rig over here. I was telling you guys about that at the beginning of the show before we went live, and it's a 2x4, the VM. It burns about 20% of 2 processors when we're banging on it. The size of the Valheim process is about 2.5 gig, and I'm burning about 400 kilobits of network per player that's live. So it's very reasonable.
Yeah.
It's
400
it's a great
kilobits.
experience.
I just remember back in the days when 500K was my cap.
Well, yeah.
And you never got it.
I spend a lot of time on the Valheim Discord helping people run dedicated servers. Oof. Can I give anybody listening a hint? If you were trying to do something and you're in over your head and don't be a little punk to the guys who are volunteering their time trying to help you out, because there's a lot of people who just don't know what they're doing, who are trying to be system administrators. That's okay. We were all there. I'll help anybody. But the attitude on some of these people trying to set these servers up, and then when you start trying to walk them through a checklist, well, I did all that already, and it worked. It worked before the patch, and it should still be working.
Do you not respond well when they start insulting your mom?
I just stop responding at that point because it's not my actual job.
I mean,
my server works perfectly.
It's kind of like your job, but yeah, you're right. It's not your real job.
Because people are like, oh, it's ever since this patch, it's totally broken. I'm like, really? My server runs perfectly.
You're not my real job.
You're not my real job. You can't tell me what to do.
All right. So speaking of your real job, you have a thing.
Yeah. I feel like I'm hogging chat, and I apologize for that. But my son Josh reached out to me the other week. He's a freshman at Stevens. He was talking to some of his buddies on their Discord. And, he's talked about
Discord!
Red Hat. And a lot of the nerds there, even the ones who are in IT, really don't know what Red Hat is. So Josh is like, hey, Dad, could you maybe talk to us and talk about Red Hat and stuff? And I'm like, well, let's see. I can do that. We'll talk about Red Hat, open source, a few other things. Some of the guys from the New York office, you've met him, Nate. Pretty, who runs the consulting program, and some of her people are going to be involved.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about the history of free software, talk about corporate IT, talk about how Red Hat fits in. And then the Stevens students will have a chance to network a little bit. And some of them might end up with like leads that get them jobs in their consulting unit with it. Yeah. So
J-Scar has something in chat.
Exciting.
He says that "You're Not My Job" has to be Jason's sound clip on the soundboard. And I think he's right.
Well, now that you're using Zencaster and everything is split out into individual audio channels, you can do that.
I can. I mean, I could before too. I would have had to make sure no one else was talking at the same time.
Oh my!
Now I can probably do it.
Now we can all talk at the exact same time, and you'll have individual audio from each of us.
I can. It's fun.
Yikes!
It's fun. I mean, hold on. We have to assume that it's actually going to work. And when I hit the stop button at the end of this, I'm actually going to get the recordings that we made. We're going to hope.
Whatever you do, don't hit the stop button or everything reloads and we all come back in again.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're going to be working from the local recording that hopefully is happening.
Oh, it is. It is.
Or else this is just an ephemeral show tonight, which I'm
I never
okay with.
Listen, I'm a sysadmin. I never work without a net.
Dude. So anyway, that event is next Thursday night. So I'm really looking forward to it. And then I won this major award at work, and there's a
Here
cash
comes the
prize
chairman.
that goes along with it.
Here
No, you
comes
said it, not me.
Mr. Chairman.
So now but now there's a cash award, so I'm pricing out a new lab server.
Oh, it's a major award.
Yeah, it's not just a lamp in the shape of a leg.
But wouldn't it be amazing if it was?
That would be awesome.
Yes, it would.
What was it? What was it from the Griswold's Family Christmas?
No, from A Christmas Story.
No. I'm trying to remember.
Cheese of the Month Club.
Cheese of the Month Club. Yeah.
Jam of the Month.
Was it? I don't remember.
Cheese would have been better.
Cheese would have been better.
I would like Cheese of the Month, I think, but jam not so much.
You might.
I love cheese. Cheese is awesome.
Cheese is awesome.
I don't know. I like jamming.
So Jay Scar, I appreciate your help with that. I think I'm close. I got something that's right around 1,000 because I'm putting 64 gig in it. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'll migrate the Valheim server over to that.
I need a decent home lab. I've got an old Dell server that I could probably run as just a KVM host, but it's all standalone, and I'd really like something a little more advanced than that. But that's money. I need like a NAS. I need probably to upgrade bandwidth. And
I have the NAS.
Yeah, I know. I don't.
My thought is I could even take some of the VMs that I was running on Rev and just pull those right in.
You know, you would take an award from work and spend it on work.
Oh, it's yeah. I don't want to say anything else, but it's a generous award. I was actually I got the email about it today, and I'm like, holy shit. So.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, and this is not me trying to like brag or gloat or anything, but Red Hat seems like a pretty generous place to work, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So, at any rate,
but that's what's going on with me. A lot of nerdy things, and we had all of our windows replaced since the last show. We had Anderson come in and they tore all the windows out. I have a beautiful new sliding door on my deck. So when I do the stuff on the egg, the door opens easy, shuts easy.
It's not locked with a block of wood anymore.
It's not locked with a block of wood. That block of wood is now making my rudders not slip. So that was repurposed.
But what happened to the box?
The box is now holding shit. It's over there.
Everyone's like, "What? What box is he talking about?"
Is that where the antlers were?
Different box. There's a cardboard box, a plastic thing, and then the other plastic thing. Yeah, there's some stuff that still needs to be put in some sort of storage.
So for those that don't know, and why would you? Marc is a team lead above me. I got technically above me. Whatever.
It's
whatever.
It's a mentoring role.
Right. So we have a one-on-one meeting. Every other week we have a one-on-one meeting, and one of my one-on-one meetings was basically dominated by discussions about the door and the block of wood that used to lock it, and where the block of wood is being repurposed to, and what used to be there, which was the box. And then I said, well, what happens to the box then? Now it's a cascading effect. It's like a whole snowball.
Hey, the first thing I always ask you is, how's work going?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We talked about work.
And then when you can't fill that air, then we talk about my fucking boxes and doors and
25 minutes of my 30-minute... It was about the box and the wood and.
I'm your favorite team lead.
You should all come to work for Red Hat. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right, Jason.
Pay me to rant at about my boxes and sticks.
What do you got going on? There's 3D printers and there's an arcade cabinet and let's go.
Oh, what did I write my list here? Oh, right. So my son is on spring break from his senior year of high school. Don't ask. So he started messing around with 3D printer.
Why would that be suspicious? Like, what do you mean? Don't ask? Like,
because you don't get a spring break in high school.
Sure, you do.
Yeah, you do now.
You get a spring break because they can't call it Easter break, and they still want you to have off for Easter because there's enough people that are still Christian.
No. He's taking all college classes. He actually has a literal spring break, like college spring break.
Interesting.
So he has decided on a bunch of things that have caused me grief and happiness. So he started playing around with his 3D printer and doing some stuff, and I had mine. Was working, made some changes to it, wasn't working, threw my hands up in frustration, didn't have time to deal with it, so I hadn't been doing anything with it lately. So he sort of reignited that flame, and we've got it running now. I've got to just a little bit more work on it, but I'll be 3D printing like a maniac soon, which makes me happy.
Yay!
How does a maniac 3D print?
Usually with the hands up, there's like streams of PLA going everywhere.
Yeah. Now that's what happens when my prints fail.
Wanted to check.
Just
Reddit
spaghetti.
Reddit had it best. I saw the post today that said I've gotten really good at printing hair.
Right.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing like the
Amazing at
feeling of
printing hair.
There's nothing like the feeling of walking into the office and you just like stop and sigh because there's this wall of spaghetti.
Yes.
Yeah, so some of the posts I've seen on Reddit are great. Like they show the picture and they're like, see if you can guess where I walked away from the printer. And it's like perfect, and then it's shifted left, like 3 inches, and the rest of it is built.
Yeah.
Like, weird. Yeah. So yeah, I'm back in the 3D printing game because I have the stuff. I haven't had the time to really mess with it. And since he got his working and it was a firmware issue, he came down and loaded the same firmware, and now it appears to be better. So we shall see.
What do you have again? You have an Ender 5?
Yeah, Ender 5 Pro.
I have the Ender 5 Pro and I have like 0 issues with it.
I've made a lot of changes to it.
Okay.
So it worked great when I got it.
Well,
worked great. Worked great is relative. So it worked when I got it.
Okay.
The bed, as with many Ender 5 Pros or Ender 5s in general, apparently was warped. So I had bed issues, and one of the things that helps with that is getting this thing called the BL Touch.
Yeah.
Which allows it to auto sense the bed and do the measurements and all that stuff. So I got one of those, and I got that installed and fired up and started working with that. And the first problem that I had with that is that it was maybe configured improperly, and instead of coming down and touching the surface so that it could print, it tried to drive itself through the surface.
That's a problem.
So
Not
now
optimal.
I have a new yeah. So the magnetic bed that it had, I had to pull that off and put something else on. So I have a new piece there. But then the other problem that I was having, which is fairly common, is the extruder was skipping.
You're an extruder.
So I did a bunch of work trying to get it to not skip, and it was not cooperating. So
I get that from is that
dual extruder?
Is that where it's trying to feed in PLA and it's basically spinning instead of feeding?
Yeah.
Mine does that from time to time.
You'll hear it click.
Yeah, you hear like a bink.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can send. There's my son found a really good article on how to actually possibly fix it.
Okay.
On the with the single drive extruders, but what I got was called a dual drive extruder, which is instead of having a freewheel on the one side for the for the material to flow through, it actually uses gears on both sides and drives them both directly, so that it pushes on both sides and drives it through for a whopping like $15 or something. So that actually fixed that problem entirely. But I was still having trouble with the bed leveling and getting it to print right. And Creality's firmware is not the best.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Pretty much every single article I read said, build your own firmware, and I just haven't had time. So my son stumbled upon Creality firmware that actually works, which is what we have now. So in the interim between that and building my own, that's what we'll use. So that's up and running now.
I would like links for like all of these
that's
things.
one project.
Send me links.
Yes,
for all of it.
I can send you links to things.
The bed on mine is okay. So I haven't even looked into BL Touch, though I've heard of it. Right. The drive thing is definitely a problem for mine. I assumed that it was that PLA was getting jammed in the hot end, but I don't. Maybe that's not it.
No, well, that could also be it. So you have a Bowden tube that goes into your hot end, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't do anything when you got it, I'm not sure how yours was set up, but if you just pushed it in there and you were like, cool, that's the wrong way to do it.
Okay.
There's a whole procedure that you can go through. Basically, what you want to do is push the Bowden tube in until it hits the hot end, but have the hot end a little bit untightened by about a quarter turn or so.
Okay.
And then you heat up the hot end and then tighten it, and it creates a seal. Because if you don't do that, there can be a little gap between the tube and the hot end, and then the liquid PLA gets in there and gums up the works.
Yeah, that's what I think is happening to mine, because every now and then I'll have trouble with that skipping, and then if I try to, there's sometimes when I try to unload the PLA that it's literally stuck. I can't pull it back out of the tube, which I think is what's happening. I think that's
it's
it.
possible. Yep. So the dual, I mean, if everything else is working, just get the dual drive extruder. It's super simple to put in.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like $15 on Amazon. It's like nothing. But it works amazingly well.
That's cool. I'll have to look into that.
So yeah, I've been playing 3D printer games. I've just got to do a little tuning, and I think everything will be great.
That sounds like fun. I have been thinking about improving the bed. It could be that it's slightly warped, but it's not. Like, I can print, right? But I do notice that I have some leveling. Like, even if I get it as level as I can get it, right? There's still cases where on the initial layer, it gets real thin at spots, and it's thicker at others, which makes me think it's that the bed is not as true as it's supposed to be.
The bed
my bed was concave.
The bed seems to be one of the big challenging pieces in a 3D printer.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of mods people do to them. A lot of the tips are around how to make the bed better. That's it.
Yeah, my bed was concave, so if I tried to print anything relatively small, I forget it, because it would because it was level, the way that it was leveled when you level the four corners.
Yeah, the center was not good.
Yeah, the middle was below that. And if you tried leveling closer to the center, now the edges are up too high, and it ends up dragging. It's just a problem. So my fix for that was taking a couple folded pieces of paper and sticking it under the magnetic bed.
Yeah,
which worked. But it was sort of a pain to, because it wasn't leveling properly, and so I figured I'd check out the BL Touch stuff, and because that's supposed to fix all that, and it did. But then I ran into other problems. Now I have a new piece for the bed that's not magnetic. It's made out of a different material, and it's level
vibranium.
Yeah, probably vibranium. So
I was considering looking into just replacing the bed. I don't know if that's a thing you can do or not, but can you just get a more true bed?
There's a couple. There's actually 3D printed parts that you can make to firm up the bed.
Interesting.
Everybody likes a firm bed.
Everybody likes a firm bed. So anyway, 3D printers.
So that's 3D printer thing.
3D printers are awesome and a real pain in the ass. Is really what it comes down to.
Yes. Although the endless printer that Real Sexy Cyborg came up with is pretty cool. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
I don't think I have.
So it's a 3D printer, but instead of the normal bed that it has a conveyor belt.
Nice.
So you can start printing and just go. It's really cool. So you can do like conveyor belt printing on it, and it just prints, you can print like 400 copies of something and it just drops them off the end. It's really neat.
Nice.
So
that's pretty cool.
So yes, adventures in 3D printing. And then the other adventure is I'm trying to get the arcade cabinet finalized. So I've got all of the content that I could possibly have. Appeared out of nowhere one day.
Magic.
Can you even imagine?
Yeah, it's very weird.
Magic.
And now the challenge is that the challenge is that when I built it, I used these things called zero delay USB encoders, one for each joystick, which is supposed to be the way that you do it.
Yeah.
I'm
for
guessing
whatever
that
reason,
they're very fast response. Because
No
they have
delay.
zero.
Zero.
yeah, they're
Zero.
digital, so they're no delay. It's whatever. I just sort of followed what I was told by somebody who's done this before. The problem is that for whatever reason, RetroPie doesn't recognize the second one, so that it won't. Or what normally happens is that the second one becomes the primary, and the primary just doesn't work at all. And it
That's
has something
fun.
to do with the PCI addresses being only off by one. So I did some more research on it and digging, trying to figure out what the hell. And I found this puppy. This is called an i-Pac 2.
Okay.
It is an analog joystick controller, and the 2 in the i-Pac 2 signifies 2 joysticks. So it is a single device that drives both
See,
joysticks.
in the
Twin
notes,
sticks, so you can play Robotron properly.
Yes.
in the notes, when you said i-Pac, I was really hoping that you were referring to Compact's competitor to the iMac from the 90s, but
Which was a friggin' suitcase.
Oh, see, you say
should have
i-Pac.
handed that to your little bitchy. I need a second laptop.
you say i-Pac, and I remember the i-Pac computers, but what I remember more is the PDA, the i-Pac PDA.
oh, right.
Yeah, there is one in.
I guess the
office
i-Pac
somewhere.
wasn't a direct competitor to the iMac. I was just remembering wrong. It was just the iPac was a computer made by Compaq.
The i-Pac PDA is in this office somewhere. I just don't remember where I put it.
But that was the IPAQ, not the IPAC, which is what you've put in the notes.
I don't think there was an IPAC from Compaq.
You're right.
It was
because
always with a Q,
Compaq
because
was spelled
Compaq
PAC,
with a Q,
PAQ. Yeah.
Yes.
Compaq.
So yeah, that little device is supposed to run both joysticks, and all of the various buttons that I have, and I'm just waiting for the crimp connectors to show up, and I'll get that all
Nice.
set up. So I'm kind of excited about that.
That sounds cool. I
yeah,
set up a Raspberry Pi 4 just connected to my TV with RetroPie on it because I had some.
What?
I actually bought a Pi 4 because I was going to put Home Assistant on it, but then I cheaped out and bought only a 2 gig Pi 4 and realized Home Assistant really needs more than that. And I figured I would put a RetroPie on it, and it's awesome. I can run PlayStation games on it, PlayStation 1 games on it now, which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, Pi 4 is what I have in the arcade.
Yeah.
I figured might as well. Of course, I bought the Pi 4. I got all the parts and everything, and then I went to put RetroPie on it, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't support the Pi 4." And I went,
Yeah, they do now.
Who doesn't
"They
support
do now."
Pi
Yeah, they
4?
do now. But
They do now. They did.
when I
Maybe
got
they
it,
didn't
they
then.
didn't.
You've been working on this thing like a
disappointed.
year, so yeah.
Yeah.
You
On
knew
and
they
off.
wouldn't. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, it really was. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
it's,
waiting for my,
Spectacular. It
it's
does
pretty
such
awesome.
A good job.
I'm waiting for my Touring Pi to show up.
What?
I got a so Touring Pi is a
Touring is an Allen Touring.
yes. It is a board.
Raise a glass to
For-
Allen Touring, please. There we go.
But
It's empty, but
My
sure.
glass is empty now, so that means all of us need to take another break and get some more beer, or whatever.
It's a Raspberry Pi compatible board that runs, I think, either 4 or 8 Raspberry Pis in parallel
Oh, that's cool.
using the Pi Compute modules. So
Nice. That's cool.
I got a line on one of those, so that should show up someday, and I can mess around with that. So fun. And then my final thing is I found out 2 hours ago that apparently I'm going to be remodeling the bathroom.
Ew.
Good luck.
Remember the kid I mentioned that's on spring break?
Uh-huh.
He decided that he needed a project and convinced my wife to allow him to rip the wallpaper out of the bathroom so that he could paint it, because the wallpaper is kind of ugly, and we've wanted to do that anyway. So today he ripped the wallpaper off, and since the person who lived in this house prior, who built the house, was a plumber, you can imagine what was behind the wallpaper.
A wall? Pipes?
I honestly do not know what the hell this material is that he used to make the wall, because it's like no drywall I've ever seen. And this house was built in the 80s, by the way.
That's no moon. That's your mother.
He did not caulk anything, so there's no sealant around the tub or anything. Yep. And thus the at the bottoms near the edges, everything is all rotted. So all of that has to come out. I gotta put new drywall.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, right? So years ago, I renovated an entire bathroom. It started with wanting to put in a medicine cabinet.
I'm very familiar with this.
And it turned into gutting the entire freaking room down to studs. Yep. Drywalling, tiling, new bathtub. The only thing we didn't replace was the toilet.
So here's the horror story. This happened 2 days ago. So the laundry room is over there. The bathroom's there. The dryer has a pipe that goes up into the ceiling and across and into the bathroom area, and one assumes that goes outside. Frank, my guy doing the demolition, calls. I'm on a call with a customer. He calls my wife down because he has to show her something. The dumbass, Nate, you're going to edit this out. The dumbass motherfucker who built the house, the prior owner, the exhaust pipe for the dryer just ended a few feet in the ceiling. And
no, I get that.
The whole ceiling was filled with lint. The lint looked like insulation.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I get that.
Like,
believe me,
what?
Remember I said how my grandfather lived through the Great Depression?
Yeah.
I live in his house. You can imagine the stuff I have found, the corners that he cut, the things. I mean, we redid our master bathroom a couple years ago. Not like full remodel, but we put in a shower and we put down vinyl tiling. When we did so, we took out the vent fan that was in the shower and replaced it with a new one. We found that the old vent fan vented into a piece of rain spout that was in the ceiling and just vented into the attic floor.
Oh, okay.
It didn't go outside at all.
Yeah. One of the previous houses that we had a vent fan that the vent was there. You turn the fan on and it would go, and we had ripped apart the ceiling or whatever to work on it and looked, and the vent, it was unconnected to anything.
Yeah. Right. It would just vent into the ceiling.
Yeah.
No, this at least went into a piece of rain spout.
No, there was nothing.
Which went like 3 feet and then vented into the floor above it.
Yeah.
It's like, what? What? Yeah. And that's not the first thing like that I've found. So, Mark, I completely understand your pain.
Yeah, but apparently I decided to paint the bathroom and it turned into a massive remodeling project is sort of like just a common thing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's like, I just wanted to change the wall. Oh my God. What is Exactly.
That's kind of where we are right now. We're like, and then immediately, because I've done this before and I knew what was coming. And I looked at it and went, I really don't want to replace the drywall, because if I take the drywall off, it's going to get worse.
Can you just put the wallpaper back and forget we saw it?
I know. I haven't been able to figure out if the ceiling was put in after the walls or before the walls, so I'm not sure where the drywall ends.
Yeah.
And then the corners are done. I don't know if they do this anymore, but the corners were done the old way with the steel 90-degree pieces of metal.
Yeah.
So that's got to come off. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's different now, but that's
underneath, and I don't know if that's
that's usually how you reinforce an outside corner, or you mean an inside corner?
Yeah.
An outside corner will usually have a piece of steel. Well, it's like aluminum almost, but yeah, that's as far as I know, that's still normal.
Oh no, this thing is steel. It's
rusty.
It's rusted.
Yeah. Then it's steel. I think they're aluminum now.
Yeah. And so I've got to deal with that. And then, so at this point I went to my wife and I'm like, so before I start this, just to make sure, you don't want to replace, because it's from the 80s. So like the tub and the toilet, they're all like this weird pink,
Uh-huh.
ugly color.
We have one.
And I'm like, you don't want to replace this, right? Like, because now's the opportunity.
Now's the time.
So, absolutely not. I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna be writing checks, so.
Well, phase 1 is I attempt to do it.
Good luck.
And
no, we did a bathroom ourselves. The one that I said we started with a cabinet. We did that ourselves. It took about 4 months, and it still cost me about $3,000.
I think we may have talked about it on the show.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be. I'm gonna give it a good effort, and if it goes sideways, I'm done. I'm just gonna pull out the checkbook and just who can we hire, because I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah, because renovation folks love coming in the middle of a project. Just saying. I
have no problem. Like if this was the living room or a bedroom, okay, fine. That's fine. But a bathroom or a kitchen, just hire somebody.
Yeah.
There's important things that need to both enter and leave that room.
Yeah, most important are the things that need to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I mean, good luck with that.
Fun.
I've done bathroom renovations. Luckily, I mean, I think this is the same case in your house, but we had 2 bathrooms to work with, so that was good. But and I hope that's true, because if not, just hire someone.
Yeah, no, there's multiple bathrooms that we could deal with. It just that happens to be where the shower is, so. So yeah.
Yeah, we had a second. I think they call it a 3/4 bath, where you don't have a bathtub, but you have a stand-up shower. We had one of those, so that we were able to shower in the middle.
Just that's it's too far away. It's in the basement.
I know. You gotta like carry your clothes down with you and get a shower and carry the dirty clothes back. Yeah, it's terrible. First world problems. So anyway,
I need a bathroom on every floor so that I don't have to just like my laptops. I have a laptop on every floor.
Perfect. But do you throw any of them away when they don't work?
Of course. That's the first thing I do. This program crashed. I throw the laptop away and get a new one.
All right, so I'm going to try to keep it brief, but we all know how that's going to go.
You're not going to be brief. Tonight we might as well not even try to do
the first.
That is important.
The first is apparently a note that Jason added that I hate technology, and I don't really know where that came from.
There was a lot of let's see.
Colorful
escalated language being used
I
at
don't
the time.
I don't talk like that.
Star Trek
trying to get all of this, this streaming stuff to work.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do that. I never lose my temper when it comes to technology. It's all great.
I could have been dreaming it.
It's perfect. I think it was. You're dreaming it. You were listening to Uncle Marc.
I don't listen to Uncle Marc. I know better.
He's learning.
All right, so Marc, the first
Nate's totally calm. You should have heard him yelling at Roll20 on Tuesday night.
Oh yes, that was very frustrating.
And nothing like you had Ryan just being Ryan.
Nothing like when you're trying to run a freaking game and you can't open the character sheet for the NPC you need to roll for, because
you had Ryan.
Roll20, you have one job. Give me the stuff I need so I can roll the freaking things.
Yes. Reload is your friend.
Yep.
But reload
closes
all the windows you've opened up.
Yep. And it didn't fix the problem.
And it doesn't make Ryan stop being Ryan.
Yeah.
But he's a good guy.
Oh my God, it wasn't even Ryan that was the problem.
Ultimately,
it was Adam.
Friend from Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's now a note for Roll20 is not your friend.
Roll20 is pretty amazing. It was just having a bad night.
It is pretty good. For those of you that have no idea what we're talking about, Uncle Marc runs
the Dungeons and the Dragons.
Yeah, Uncle Marc runs a D&D campaign on Tuesday nights that I'm part of, and since
I've needed a break,
right? Since I have some experience DMing, although it was 20 years ago, we decided to. I'm running a game now while Marc recharges. So. It's been
how many of your NPCs washed up on shore after rowing their coffins away from Ravenloft?
Oh God, that wasn't Ravenloft. That was a totally different system.
Oh.
Remember, that was Savage
Okay.
Worlds. That was Savage Worlds, and he
No,
was
yeah. You drug him there, but he was all screwed up because he was in Ravenloft.
Well, he was screwed up because the character I based him on got screwed up in
Yes.
Ravenloft.
Yes.
That was fun. That was a fun campaign. Savage Worlds, folks. Day After Ragnarok is a really cool system, I guess.
And
module?
yeah,
is it a module? I guess it's a module.
That's the module, yeah. Savage Worlds is a really interesting system. The whole exploding dice
oh my God.
Concept is just...
The number of...
Yeah.
Buckets o' dice.
Buckets and dice. No,
Yes.
so Savage Worlds is a D6 based gaming system where most of your rolls are done with a D6. And on things like damage rolls, if you roll a 6 or whatever the max is for whatever dice you're rolling, it's referred to as an explosion, and then you roll it again, kind of like a critical hit in D&D where you get extra damage.
No, I love the idea. It sounds like fun.
But the thing is, it'll compound. If you explode on the second roll, it explodes again and again and again and again until you run out of luck.
Until you
essentially,
stop rolling 6s.
Yeah, until you stop rolling 6s. Well, one of the guys that was playing with us, whenever the DM would throw like a big badass, like this is the end boss kind of guy at us, just, I don't know. This guy does have a physics degree, so maybe he did this intentionally somehow, but he would just, by dumb luck or by physics, I don't know, he would explode his dice and one-shot the freaking baddie.
The look on the DM's face after he spent all of this time setting up this epic battle.
And then Rich one-shots it.
One guy to one-shot his epic boss was just amazing. Now, the best part of the story is that right after the boss is killed, it is now the DM's turn, and the little mooks come up. So this little dude comes up with an axe. That's all he has.
Chucks it at Rich.
The guy that killed the big boss has a sniper, this big ass sniper rifle. He's like armored to the teeth, like amazing. The mook comes up, and one of the things with the whole exploding dice is it doesn't just work for the players.
Right.
It works for the DM. So the mook comes running up and throws his axe, because that's the only action he has, and the dice proceed to explode like a dozen times in a row.
Yeah.
And he one-shots the player. And it was
total RPG karma.
Like, crestfallen, and then he one-shots the player, and the player is like,
What? I'm dead.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's okay. The Ship of Nails brought him back with no hair.
Yes, I gave him a Viking funeral, and the Ship of Nails brought him back. Yes.
Good times, good times. Anyway, the thing I'm trying to actually... Yes, the thing I'm actually trying to talk about, Mark, is something that I think you might be interested in. My wife picked up a board game to play with the family. It's called Pictopia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
Well,
but
I'm about to.
It's a Disney game where basically you move throughout a board, and every time you land on a square, you pick up a card, and the card has a question, and there's several different like scenarios in which you have to try to answer the question. But
sing your answers.
Mark probably could, but all of the answers are based on your knowledge of Disney movies. This would be perfect for you. Now, it's probably a little below the age category of your children, but maybe you want to just pick it up and test your Disney knowledge. I don't know. It's up to you. But it's a fun game.
7+. So
yeah, right. 7+. Your kids fall into that range.
A little bit.
So anyway, it's fun, and I thought you might appreciate it just because
I do appreciate it because games are awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty fun. I don't know if it's because I watch too many Disney movies or not, but if you have children, if you had children grow up during a certain time frame, you had no choice because you had you have the ability to you had the DVDs running constantly. No, this is before we had kids. Okay. Try to give you an out. Okay. Anyway, maybe I was just raised on Disney movies. I don't know what it is. But at any rate, yeah, it was kind of a fun game. And if anybody out there has kids that are in the roughly 6 to like 10 or 12 range, you might have fun with it too, especially if you like Disney stuff. The other thing I wanted to show is I talked about this open source thermostat a couple weeks ago when we last recorded, and now I have actual thermostat, although it's not in a case yet. So yeah, it's becoming a real thing, right? So like here's a bunch of relays that actually control my heating system and whatnot. Obviously this isn't installed yet because I'm still figuring out some integrations. Here's the Raspberry Pi Zero that controls the whole thing. And here's the power supply, which will eventually end up on the board here, just kind of hot glued in place. Here's the temperature sensor and stuff. So yeah, it's getting there. It's pretty cool. I'm kind of excited to get this working. At the moment, it's not going so well, but we'll hope. Yes, J-Scar, I got the new display.
I like that the brains, the Raspberry Pi Zero, is like the smallest component.
It really is. It really is. And honestly, the reason they picked a Raspberry Pi Zero is because they based the whole thing on a different home automation system called OpenHab, and the Pi Zero runs OpenHab. So the idea behind the Hestiapi, which is what this thing's called, is that it's not just a thermostat. You can actually use this as the home automation hub, right? I don't need it for that because I use Home Assistant for that stuff, and that's what I'll talk about next, which hopefully, again, will be brief. But, so I'm trying to integrate this thing with Home Assistant, and I'm getting close, but I don't know if it's going to be successful or not. So I need like 4 of these things, so I have not purchased the parts to build the rest because I need to make sure it works first. So that's where I am with that. And the other thing is, you guys might remember when we had Avri on, he was talking about these ESP8266 controllers that come in certain home automation products that you can purchase that can then be reflashed with Tasmota, or you can buy them directly and build your own stuff. And then he also told us at the end of his little thing about Home Assistant that you should totally avoid Home Assistant because it will consume your life after you've installed it and set it up. He's right. This is a dimmer switch that I purchased that I've recently gone through the effort of flashing with Tasmota. So this is going to go in my dining room and be controlled with Home Assistant. Maybe you can't see it on the camera, but I used to just have the one light in the corner. I now have 2 lights. There's a light bulb over there running Tasmota because I just can't stop. So it's going well, and eventually I'm going to have to be checked into some kind of a rehab program, I think. Just saying.
Or hackers can invade your house and just take over everything you do.
Yeah, every one of these that I set up, I'm terrified. So I'm currently at the point where I've proven that things work. Now I'm going to start figuring out how do I make them work and also be secure. Because we'll call this the what's the word I'm looking for? The test phase, I guess, or the proof of concept, right? So things are working. Now I need to figure out how to make them all good and secure. And there are ways to secure things, right? So I'm going to work on that. Are you using Ansible to control your lights yet? No, not yet. I don't really need to because Home Assistant does it. Maybe I can use Ansible to control Home Assistant to control the lights. That'd be great. Is there a Home Assistant module for Ansible?
You can write one.
I could.
You just need to know some Python, yo.
There's just the next step in this whole thing is now I'm going to automate the automation with an automation tool. And then I'll have the automation tool write its own automation. And then it becomes sentient.
Then that's how you get the Skynet garbage.
That's how we get Skynet.
Yes.
They
finally.
never learn. We always invent Skynet over and over again.
Yeah. Well, we haven't gotten there yet, which is a good thing.
No, and if my Roomba's any indication, we're in no immediate danger of the robots ever taking over.
You're probably right. You're probably right. So anyway, we've gone on and on about chat. We're almost 2 hours already. Let's go ahead and at least cover some news. What do you think?
Yeah, whatever you want, man.
All right, here we go.
Started late anyway.
Yeah, we did.
So, can I make a smart-ass comment about the second news item?
If you want to.
But
If
we're
you've
not
ever-
at the second news item yet.
Yeah, but I don't know if we'll ever get there.
All right. What's your smart-ass comment about the second
My
news
smart-ass
comment?
comment is that this story says major data center fire takes Rust servers and chess network offline. So, if you've ever played the game Rust, this is like deliciously ironic.
Okay.
Because this is basically what happens to somebody who plays Rust. They get in the game and maybe they gather some resources and they start to build a nice little house. And then rampaging assholes descend upon them, kill them, take all their stuff, and burn their house down. So it couldn't have happened to it's so meta. It's like Rust to the next level.
That's perfect. Well, it's not perfect for this poor company.
They even mentioned that in the first paragraph. So.
They do.
Yeah.
So this is actually coming from an Australian news source, kotaku.com.au.
They do a lot of gaming news.
Okay.
Kotaku, yeah, Kotaku. This is the Australian arm of
network.
Kotaku. Kotaku is actually a larger organization.
Okay.
Like
all right.
Skynet.
So major data center fire takes Rust servers and a chess network offline, and quote unquote chess network. Apparently, there are several chess networks running from the same cloud. They call it a cloud, but I'm going to get into that in a second. Yeah, cloud network, right? So there's a fire at one of 4 data centers. There was a name for this company. I totally read this article, I promise.
OVH.
So they have 4 data centers, and the data center oddly looks like it's built out of shipping containers. I don't know how this works exactly. But maybe it's some, new gen data center that's just a bunch of shipping containers and AC units, but maybe that's why it caught fire. But
wrong.
I mean, look
It
at the
does.
pictures. It looks like it's made of shipping containers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I totally agreed.
So, here's the thing that confuses me. And I didn't look into like where they have their data centers or anything, but they said that the fire took out one data center, damaged a second data center, and took the other 2 offline. So does that mean that their cloud, because they're calling it a cloud service, is actually just 4 data centers on the same plot?
I mean, cloud is such an overloaded bullshit term now.
It kind of is,
anyway.
right?
So who knows?
They do. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a good question because so much like many of the other data center providers, they have so these are SBG 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And it's from what I'm reading, SBG 2 is the one that was that was decimated by fire, which is the wrong use of that word. Decimated. I hate that. Anyway,
it's called out in.
Only a tenth of it should have burned down.
Exactly. Right, exactly. See, somebody gets it.
SBG 2 is gone. And
so it's been devastated, not decimated.
So I don't understand what they mean by having to restart 1, 3, and 4.
Right. That's my confusion. Right. But there is mention. There is mention that another one was damaged in the fire, though. I thought earlier on in the article. I did read this. I'm telling you, we don't have access here. We don't have access to the site. That's why there's SPG 1, SPG 3, SPG 4 won't be restarted.
The second was badly damaged, while the remaining 2 were taken offline. I don't know. Maybe they're like 4 of them clustered together.
Right. So are they like? I don't know. I'm very curious about the architecture of this whole thing because it literally, if you look at and there's a video here. I'm not going to play while we're live. I should have watched it before the thing, but it really looks like this is some kind of like we've stacked up shipping containers and made data centers out of them.
You're a little obsessed on the shipping containers thing, which I understand because
have you looked at the picture?
Like the ideal.
Maybe that's why it caught fire.
So the video is one of those AI, ML, whatever you want to call it, videos that are the automated voice just reading text.
I friggin' hate those.
Never
really
mind.
bad.
I close those immediately.
Never mind though. If you can't actually pay a person to speak to me, I don't watch your video.
They do look like shipping containers.
Oh, Lichess was affected.
I like Lichess.
Yeah, well, they were affected.
That's the network I play on when I play chess. I haven't played lately because.
Well, now you're not playing it because it might be offline. Maybe it's back
So-
now.
Well, now I'm going to see if I can access it.
Yeah.
So Rust
in.
clearly
Okay.
clearly did something wrong, because they'll say here, we've confirmed a total loss to the affected European servers during the data center fire, and they're looking to replace them, which is great. Data will be unable to be restored.
I don't know,
Somebody
they-
screwed
well,
up
no,
their
so they-
disaster recovery.
They called out later in the article that their systems team was able to restore up to the last 24 hours of data.
For it to be the full Rust experience, the first scenario was much more accurate.
Where they didn't back
where
up the
they lose
data?
all their data.
Oh, okay.
That would be the full Rust experience.
Yeah, so maybe the data they're talking about is the 24 hours or whatever that they lost.
Yeah, I don't see anything about that, but okay, sure. Yeah, all game progress is reset
Hang
according
on.
to the Rust posts. Well, whatever, it's a video game. Who cares?
Nah. Nah. Have you ever met some of these gamers?
I
Some
am one of those
crazier
gamers.
right? I mean, that can be a big deal.
I remember
I
reading
get
this.
it.
I'm
I
trying
mean,
to
if I-
find the...
I'd be mad if I actually have a nightly script that shuts down my Valheim servers, copies the world data to my filer, and that then gets synced up to Google. So I have like the on-site backup and the off-site backup.
Oh,
3, 2, 1.
hold on. They were talking about the Lichess data that was not lost.
Like the
Right.
player
Well, chess
records
is
and
really
stuff.
important. So I'm sure they back that
Yeah,
up.
so it said several of the Lichess servers burnt down in a data center fire tonight. No one was harmed. Thanks to our zealous sysadmin and his backups, all we lost was 24 hours of puzzle history. And they're talking about
that's not a
Lichess.
big deal.
They're talking about
Yeah.
Lichess.
The
Great.
zealous.
Now I gotta go look up
sysadmin.
live chat.
Zealous,
Figure out
yeah.
what
You're
that
a
This-
zealot if you have
Honestly, all right.
backup.
So the reason I found this article is because I have a Google search alert for the word sysadmin, right? And that's what
That
it
makes
keyed
sense. You know, I've heard the show.
on. That's what it keyed on. So that's why I found this article. All right. Anyway,
Oh boy.
so we have more news. Let me think here. Let's pick one more of these. What do you think? Oh, we got to talk about the Google Pay one, just because I want to hear Marc complain about it.
Ah,
Oh, but there's also this one about code signing. What do you guys think? Google Pay and spying
I
on
don't-
people, or code signing?
code signing. Let's see what's up.
Yeah, let's go code signing.
Code signing.
Because we know Google is a bunch of dicks.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
let's see.
okay. So, quick summary: Google Pay, which maybe you've heard of, is just payment service from Google. Apparently, so far they have not used any of your data for like advertising and monetization purposes. So far, right? So in India, they're already starting to roll out a program to start monetizing your payment data.
How do you monetize someone's payment data?
I guess they're gonna mine it based on like buying habits and whatnot. I don't know. They don't go into that kind of detail, but they say that there's a new update coming to Google Pay, which is basically going to say like, hey, will you opt into this thing that makes us money, please? So, if you're in India and use Google Pay, you should know that. Anyway,
I
all
use
right.
I in theory have Crapple Pay, but I only use it for a handful of users.
Yeah, so I used to use Google Pay just because I could do contactless payment at terminals that accept Google and Apple Pay, or
Right. That way you don't have to touch other people's germs and shit.
right, and I don't have to actually pull out my credit card and have people, possibly like.
Touch your credit card with their germs and shit.
Well, it's not just a germ thing; it's a security thing, right?
No,
If it-
I get you.
If
But
the
a
card
lot of
never
it's
leaves
germs
my
and shit.
wallet, they can't see the number. If I'm not swiping it, they
'Cause
can't
I know
skim
these
it.
assholes aren't washing their hands after using the bathroom, even though the sign says all employees must.
You're right. You're right. But now that my bank card has contactless payment built into it with NFC, I don't have
Yeah.
to use Google Pay, so I stopped using it.
So you can be less monetized.
Right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
they
the
apparently the Google Pay is changing
Guess we're
something.
talking about
I
the
saw
story
some-
anyway.
I guess we are. I just
Yeah, I saw a bunch of complaining about Google Pay changes and what they're doing. I don't use it, so I haven't been paying attention.
They keep advertising at me that they want to be more of a financial app, like not just a payment.
More of you. They want to take more of you.
Not just a mechanism for payment, but they want to be like a personal finance app, right? They're like, oh, you can do your budgeting through Google Pay. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. Thank you.
What? They're just like they do with your mail. All they're gonna do is look at the metadata, which means that it's gonna mine the entire thing,
right?
And then they're gonna serve you advertisements based on what's in your finances.
So since we're talking about it anyway, the Google Pay article is from TechCrunch. It's in the show notes. You guys can go read it if you want to. But the article we were really going to talk about is from Tech Republic, not TechCrunch, even though they're similar. A new Linux Foundation open source signing tool could make software supply chains universal. Secure software supply. Did I say secure? Could make secure software supply chains universal.
And I'm the one drinking all the bourbon.
Yeah, well,
it was a couple of fingers.
I had a pretty strong beer. All right, that's like 11%, and I drank the whole thing in the first half of the show.
I'm a Viking.
All I'm hearing is excuses
say
from people who can't hold their liquor.
I didn't say I was a Viking. I also didn't say I was drunk. I just made a damn mistake.
I'm just in a good mood now.
All right, so
anyway,
they're calling this. Sorry, go ahead.
Have you heard that
configuration files now?
Have you heard that signing your software is going to make supply chain attacks impossible?
Totally impossible.
Bullshit.
Right. So
said that.
So the idea here is that they want to make it easier to sign source in an open source project, which is traditionally a problem. It's at least that's the way the article presents it. I've never committed code to an open source project. I don't really know how that half of it works, but I can imagine it would be a problem since the code is in fact open and you could have contributions from lots of people. But the idea here is, and I want to be clear, they compare it to blockchain, but it's not blockchain.
It's because blockchain is what's on everybody's mind.
Right. So blockchain is right a buzzword.
No, they compare it to cryptocurrencies and blockchain because they're using public logging.
Right.
So it's they're signing it. It's a cryptographic signature.
Right.
In a public log. Now I haven't looked at it, but you basically just described blockchain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not I think the point they're trying to make is that it is not the same technology as blockchain. It's just the same concepts.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it depends on what you consider blockchain to be.
Head hurts. Need more bourbon now.
They had a name for it, which I read earlier. It was called
Store.
No, well, right. SigStore is the thing, but there was a name they used for the technology.
Transparency logs.
Man, you must
transparent aluminum.
You just read faster than I do.
Transparent aluminum.
So they're supposed to be more resilient to majority attacks, and basically the idea. So with blockchain, you can have what's called a majority attack. So if you control the majority of the nodes in blockchain, you can change it and override.
There was a plot line in Silicon Valley about that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. This is where they were working against the Chinese factory, who they were all programming the phones and yeah. So
Silicon Valley,
exactly,
man,
same thing.
Silicon Valley is how you do a nerd show. Not like that garbage Big Bang Theory. Silicon Valley.
Bang Theory was awesome.
No,
don't you start.
Terrible.
It was great. That was an awesome show.
Some people love it. Some people hate it. I've heard both sides.
Nerd reference. Canned laughter. Oh, he said something nerdy, so it's funny. No, Silicon Valley actually had had storylines that you could actually appreciate from a nerd perspective.
Yes, you're exactly right. How to jack off the entire audience to ensure that you win the prize. Complete with engineering diagrams.
Here we go.
which led to the compression algorithm.
Now,
yes. I mean, it was great. I enjoyed every minute of it. So
now, not only do we have a fight, Now, not only do we have a fight over what show is better, it's a nerd fight
Not
over
even a
what show
question.
is better.
Silicon Valley is so much better than the big crap Bang Theory.
Yes, Mr. Robot is the best. Thank you, J-Scar.
And Mr. Robot also has no laugh track, so it scores points for
Right.
that.
Mr.
Right.
Robot fell off the cliff on on season, like
I haven't
it?
seen
It's
past
third
season 3.
whatever season it was where it didn't actually all happen. It was all in his head. It was such nonsense.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wasn't that the first season? No, okay.
spoilers.
Halt
Yeah,
and,
so,
halt,
so the
Halt and Catch Fire was also a good one, I thought.
Halt and Catch Fire was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, I will not fight with Jason about that because
That was it was just awesome.
I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to actually remember that shit live.
That's what I loved about it, right? So these are like things that actually happened in computing history, but they were just like the names were changed, right?
Yeah.
It was close enough.
Right, it was close enough. It was dramatized and the names were changed, but I thought it was really cool.
It was.
And no, the same person did not do all of those things.
I know, that was the thing, right? They made the same guy go through the whole
but the overall look and feel and
it was good. I thought it was good.
Tapped into it really well.
Yeah.
So anyway, blockchain and
right, blockchain and code signing and we're talking about an article.
So I don't know. I don't actually know a whole lot about transparency logs, but it sounds like it's sort of the same, but overcome some of these problems.
Yeah.
Now, this article says that transparency logs are more mature. And if that's the case, why didn't blockchain use it? Because blockchain has major problems with that stuff.
I don't know.
You'll probably never.
Why didn't we land? Why didn't we land on HD-DVD? And why didn't we land on Betamax?
Because it's the same reason that
fair enough.
guidance, like with the pandemic, why is guidance changed? Because you learn how to do shit better.
Yeah.
New facts present themselves, and with software and open source, you get new ideas injected in, and you're like, oh yeah, that was friggin' obvious. Why didn't we think of that? That's the way technology works. You figure out new ways to do stuff.
So this thing is apparently designed to help people cryptographically sign open source projects. Is it specifically source code, or is it the releases, or both?
I would say
I'm not even sure.
I would say probably both, because
but it's
part of certain security standards, is making sure that you've got the proper versions of RPMs installed, from a binary perspective. So like when a major vendor like Red Hat or Novell or Oracle, when they release RPMs, they have the signing, the checksums and the signings that verify that this was indeed compiled by us, and it's not a bad player that's been injected.
Right. And what this is doing is quote unquote solving the problem of doing that. And it's not that this stuff is hard. It's that you have to set it up to do it. And people are lazy. Very lazy.
Yep.
Right? So why so if you download, raise your hand.
So
raise your hand if you download a tar.gz file from an open source repository and check the checksum.
Right.
That's what I thought.
So
now raise your hand if Yum checks the checksum for you when it downloads it.
Right.
Oh yes, it does, because that's what it's designed to do, and why everybody uses that.
Right. So
you can turn that off though. You can turn off.
Yeah, you can. So the thing here is that this is a classic case of like, I want to get my thing done. Right. In this case, that thing is coding. Right. Security checksums and GPG keys and whatever are extra things I have to think about, and all I really want to do is get my thing done. Right. And some open source projects probably are very grateful for the code that people are writing, so they're not going to like reject them just because they're not following all of these signing guidelines.
Yep, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just pointing out that it's just an automation of a thing that already exists.
Right. So what I'm saying is making that easier, making it more automated, making it a thing that's easier to just not have to think about, and it just happens, is a good thing, right?
Right. The one thing that I will caution, because and I have to read through this again, but this is one of those, we're going to make secure software supply chains universal. This, according to what I'm reading, takes where is it? It basically uses the normal X509 public key stuff. Does a bunch of short-lived key pairs, blah 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 blah, and it's pairing your signing certificate with an OpenID connection. So if you're able to log in successfully, you can now sign this software. Okay, cool. I have not verified that you are who you are. All I've done is automate this whole process. So this does not by any means solve supply chain attacks. It makes things slightly better, but if take for instance some of the supply chain attacks that we've seen, and we've seen this where code is injected before it makes it into like CI/CD systems or whatever internally to an organization and makes it out into a signed binary. So there's a lot more steps to this whole thing. There's still a lot more security that needs to be put into place overall. This is just one of those helpful steps. So it's not a silver bullet, but it's a step along the way.
It's yet another tool, but there's always going to be places where a bad actor can insert.
Yeah. The thing about bad actors is they keep getting trickier, and they keep finding ways to get in there. Tricksy hobbitses and their elvish ropes.
The other thing about bad actors is they only have to win once.
It's like when my daughter and I cross the bridge into New Jersey, we drive through Toby country. We have to be lucky every time. Toby only has to be lucky one time in 1,000. And if Toby's lucky, the bear eats us. Toby's the bear.
That bear. I remember you telling me this now.
Toby country, man. If you get complacent, you get eaten. And he might jump down from the bridge that crosses the highway. If you never know. You've crossed the river, you think you're safe, and all of a sudden, there's Toby jumping off the bridge. He got lucky that one time out of 1,000. Am I saying Toby's a hacker inserting malicious code? I'm not saying that.
I think Marc needs some more whiskey.
I thought that was Bob. I thought Bob was the evil hacker.
Bob?
That's Toby's alias.
It's my buddy Bob.
Your buddy Bob?
Your buddy Bob. He's the guy who's doing all the hacking and the illegal stuff. It's never you. It's always Bob.
Oh, right. Absolutely. Bob's the guy that finds me movies online, too.
Yes. He's also your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. And with that, folks, I think we're done for tonight. We've gone to Toby Country and Bob's your uncle. So thanks, I think, for anyone who stuck with us this long. Remember, if you want to watch us,
still here because he's talking about Bob.
J Scar is still here talking about Bob. Thank you for hanging out, J Scar.
We'll have to have you on again because you were wicked fun.
Yeah, that was fun. All right, so remember, folks, you can watch us live when we do this crap if you really want to. And you can do that on the second and fourth Thursday, roughly, of every month. You should go and find us on YouTube or Twitch to do so. Links for that are in the show notes. You can also find us on the social medias, both Twitter and Facebook. Just look for Iron Sysadmin. If you want to join our Discord community, hang on.
Discord!
Come on! Discord! I suppose I could just say that instead of hitting the button. It is me that said it after all.
No!
So, if you want to join our Discord community, there's also a link for that in the show notes. Yay. That's on the other board. I can't switch. Yay. It's not quick enough to get back to the other.
Yay!
Marc is distracting me.
So that you got to do all that filler content in between before you can push the button.
Yeah, right. You got to just keep talking until I can find the whatever. And the stuff and the. So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks for hanging out if you're hearing this, it means you have a lot of patience, and we appreciate that. Remember, if you want to support the show, you can do so via Patreon. I talked earlier about the new tiers. You should go back and listen to it again if you've forgotten already, because that was like an hour and 10 minutes ago. But yeah. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, whatever you're doing, and we'll catch you in the next show. You guys got any final thoughts? That's your final thoughts?
That's it.
I mean, keep on trucking, yo.
It's not even like good night, thank you. It's
Good night, thank you. You know what? I am super happy with the shift in weather we've had the last few days. I know it's going to get a little chilly again, but it's been a nice little pleasant, warmer days. Kind of needed that because January and February was a rough road sometimes. It was
70 degrees
dreary
out today.
It was.
I'm very confused.
It was nice.
I actually wore shorts.
I walked outside with my coat on because I had to go out.
Damn, this
and I
sucks.
went,
It's hot.
What the hell?
What
was
happened?
Very confused.
And there's still snow on the ground.
Yeah,
not much
a good bit too. I've got a pile of snow that's probably about 1.5 feet tall. So
most of my snow is gone.
All right, folks. Now you've got a weather report from Pennsylvania. So thank you again for watching, and I think we're going to call it. So good night, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
What are we calling it?
What are we calling it? We're calling it good
Bob.
night.